General Hospital spoilers tease that the suspicions, which began as a flicker in Lulu Spencer's mind, have now grown into a smoldering fire that will not be extinguished. She can't deny the unease she feels as each detail of Gio Palmieri's past seems to fit together into a story that her heart doesn't want to believe but her mind forces her to confront. Gio isn't just a stranger who has come into the lives of Dante, Brooklyn, and the Quartermain family. He carries with him clues, memories, and coincidences that are too perfect to be true, living evidence that he could be the child Dante and Brooklyn lost, the child who was taken away for adoption so many years ago. A wound that has never healed in the hearts of all involved. Chase, with his instincts as a cop and his absolute loyalty to his friends, also senses the unrest lurking just below the surface. He had sworn to keep the secret of the baby Brooklyn had given him, but now, with all the signs pointing to Gio, he could no longer ignore it. Chase knew that the truth, no matter how painful, was worth telling. Increasingly, it was his inner turmoil that drove Chase to secretly support Lulu in her search for answers. And so, Lulu and Brooklyn, two women who had once been rivals, filled with misunderstandings and distance, were forced to work together on a secret plan. No one else knew. They secretly planned a DNA test that was completely confidential. A plan dangerous not only because of the risk of discovery, but because if the truth were confirmed, it would blow away the foundations of their already fragile families. The plan, which had started as a whispered idea amid hurried meetings and anxious glances, had gradually become one of those new impositions, an undercurrent that was rising and becoming irresistible. Every step, every decision, pushed them closer to the brink of an explosion, where long-hidden secrets could no longer be concealed. Lulu's sleepless nights, Brooklyn's anxious glances, all signaled the coming storm. And outside their orbit, Lois Cerullo began to sense a shift in the air. With a mother's intuition, Lois knew something was afoot, something that could destroy everything she had fought to protect. In desperation, Lois began to weave her own crazy plans, trying to control every piece of information, trying to steer the story in the most advantageous direction. But these ideas, rather than creating a safety net, only accentuate the panic and helplessness that simmers inside her. The more she tries to hide, the more obvious the truth becomes. The shadow of obsession hangs over everything. Lulu not only risks hurting Dante, for whom she still harbors feelings that she can't quite name, but must also weigh the consequences of upending the new life Gio is trying to build. Chase is torn between his loyalty to his friends and his conscience telling him to stand on the side of truth. Brooklyn is consumed with panic as the past she's tried so hard to forget resurfaces. A DNA sample, a truth, can be the knife that ends the most fragile of relationships. And so, Lulu and Brooklyn, with Chase's silent help, take the first steps toward their plan. A hair, a bloodstain, a mucous membrane, anything that could be taken from Gio without alerting him, became their target. Every move, every decision, was carefully considered down to the last detail. While the fear of discovery lurked like an invisible monster behind every action. Inside each of them, a storm of rage and regret was brewing. Lulu knew that, when the truth came out, it could completely destroy everything Dante and Brooklyn had worked so hard to build. But she also knew that, once the truth was kindled, it could not be buried forever. And in the distance, Lois was growing increasingly desperate. She schemed in secret, pulling strings, hoping to delay, to bend the truth to her will. But her frantic efforts only made her more obvious, making it easier for Lulu and Chase to know that they were on the right track. An exposure awaited. No longer a hypothesis, no longer a doubt, but a naked, painful and undeniable truth. Gio Palmieri, a young man full of determination and ambition, may soon learn that the blood flowing through his veins is not just a coincidence but a thread connecting him to two people who once thought they had lost everything. And when that moment comes, neither of them will be able to turn back. As Lulu held the DNA results confirming Joe's match with Rocco, a numb shock swept through her. There was no room for lingering doubts. No more lingering questions in the dark. The truth was painfully clear. Gio was the lost child, the child Dante and Brooklyn had loved and lost. Lulu clutched the paper in her hand, feeling her heart pounding in her chest like an alarm. But with the revelation came a storm of dark emotions. New, crazy events began to swirl in her mind. Thoughts she had never dared to imagine now pushing her toward irreversible action. A tremor was brewing right in the heart of Port Charles. With the evidence in hand, Lulu was no longer bound by vague theories. She had the right, the reason, and most importantly, the motivation to attack Brooklyn. To destroy the facade that Brooklyn and Lois had worked so hard to build. This was no longer about Gio. This was about honor, about betrayal. About a web of lies that was piled on top of each other until no one could tell what was real and what was fake. Brooklyn could feel the dangerous aura spreading around her. Every look Lulu gave her now was cold, sharp as a knife, ready to cut through any secret. Brooklyn knew that. She knew the truth couldn't be kept secret forever. But she had never been prepared for this moment. She had never thought Lulu would go this far, never believed that Lulu would actually find a way to verify what both she and Lois had tried to bury. Lois, who had been pulling the strings behind the scenes, was beginning to feel the pressure more than ever. Her desperate attempts to twist the truth, to construct a false reality safe for Gio, are now crumbling. Lois sees in Lulu's eyes the condemnation, the contempt, and above all, the ruthless determination she knows she cannot stop. The new events are silently tearing apart the peaceful life Lois and Brooklyn have tried to maintain. The shocks are crushing, the haunting obsessions do not spare either of them. Lulu is no longer simply seeking the truth for herself. She has become a hurricane ready to sweep away all who dare stand in her way, a righteous rage fueled by love, betrayal, and the desire for justice. With each step Lulu takes toward the inevitable confrontation, she does not falter. The obsession with all that has been stolen from Dante's life, from her own, becomes an unyielding force. With each passing hour, Lulu became more certain that she was not only doing the right thing, but that she was on a noble mission, to expose the lies, to demand the truth. No matter the cost. Brooklyn felt like she was standing on the edge of a cliff. One look from Lulu was enough to make her shudder. There was no escape. There were no more reasonable excuses. She knew Lulu had the evidence. She knew any denial would only make things worse. And worse, she knew Lois was on the verge of collapse. The lies, the wrong choices, now surrounded her like a net from which there was no escape. Lois tried to control the situation, tried to hold on to the fragile facade that was crumbling around her. But Lulu was too sharp. Every move Lois made now only made her look more ridiculous in the eyes of everyone. Every word Lois spoke, every forced smile Lois gave away was mercilessly exposed by Lulu. And the most painful thing is that Lois knows she can't fight the truth. The secret DNA test, which started as a glimmer of hope, has now become a fatal blow. Lulu is ready to drive that blow into the heart of the fabric of lies that Brooklyn and Lois have built. A clean, precise, unforgiving blow. A blow that could shatter every relationship, every dream, but also a necessary blow to free everyone from the burden of lies. There is nothing to stop Lulu anymore. There is nothing to shield Brooklyn and Lois. And deep down, Lulu knows that the storm she is about to unleash will not only sweep away those who lied to her, but also sweep herself along with it on a journey of no return, where the truth will touch all the pain she never imagined. But she still goes forward, because for Lulu, the truth is worth every loss. And she won't stop until every piece of the lie is crushed under her feet. Chase is still struggling with the deepest internal conflict of his life. He, who always believed in honesty, always fought for what was right, is now trapped in a web of suffocating secrets. Despite all the things left unsaid, despite the fierce undercurrents that swirl around Brooklyn, Chase cannot let go of his feelings for her. That love, innocent and painfully sincere, has tied him to a tangled relationship, where every step forward means sinking deeper into murky waters. From the moment the crazy idea of officially adopting Gio with Brooklyn begins to take shape in his mind, all the boundaries in Chase's life are immediately pushed aside. It is no longer simply a love story between two adults. Now, they are talking about building a family, building a future on the foundation of secrets that are about to explode. That thought, sweet yet terrifying, took root in Chase's heart, seeping into his every breath, his every conflicted dream. This new story changed all his previous calculations, like a sudden waterfall pouring down, sweeping away all the fragile plans that Chase had cherished. With a good heart and a desire for a stable home, he began to adjust his actions. Began to imagine peaceful family pictures with the presence of Brooklyn and Gio. But he did not know. He was stepping into the role of a surrogate father without ever truly understanding the truth about the child he was about to embrace. Brooklyn, in her increasing fear and pressure, clung to Chase like the only life buoy left in the flood. She held on to the love that Chase had for her, desperately hoping that that feeling could soothe the sins of the past, could fill the painful void that the truth would leave. But deep down, Brooklyn also knows that the bond between them is being eroded by the lies she can no longer control. With each step they take forward, the Port Charles plot surges like a tidal wave, pushing everything to the brink of collapse. New actions, new promises, are no longer just innocent dreams. They have turned into time bombs, just waiting for a spark to explode and sweep everything away. Because Lulu, with DNA evidence in hand, is silently tightening the siege. She cannot stand by and watch Gio, Dante's biological child, continue to be trapped in a web of lies, whether the one who built that web is Chase, the person she once trusted, or Brooklyn, the person who was once a rival but now the focus of anger. From afar, Lois also feels the heavy pressure pressing down on her shoulders. The crazy decisions and cover-ups she once made, believing she was doing the right thing, now only push Brooklyn and Chase deeper into a spiral with no way out. Lois believed that by keeping secrets, she could protect the people she loved. But the reality is much more cruel. She is witnessing the terrible consequences of every lie, every small but deadly evasion. A terrible fear is forming inside Lois, growing stronger with each passing day, that Brooklyn will lose everything, that Gio will lose the chance to reunite with his real family. That Chase, so kind and honest, will collapse under the weight of what he doesn't know. Lois sees the end that awaits them, but she is helpless, tied to her own mistakes. The plot of General Hospital has never reached such a violent climax. Every character, every life, is caught in irreversible choices. Lulu walks the path of truth, cold and unforgiving. Chase clings to love with pitiful blindness, straining to protect what he believes is right but is in fact just a fragile illusion. Brooklyn struggles to protect the indefensible, using love to justify unforgivable mistakes. Lois, the silent director of all this tragedy, can only silently witness everything she has tried to build crumbling piece by piece, beyond repair. And at the center of that storm, Gio, an innocent young man who has never had the right to choose his life, is bearing it all. Crimes he did not commit, secrets he has never known. All are crashing down on him like a cruel fate. Gio will have to face the truth that his life, his family, and himself have been turned into pawns in the game of calculating and deceitful adults. Everything was moving towards the brink, every passing moment carried the heavy breath of a storm about to explode, where there was no room for compromise, no way out for anyone. Lulu and Chase know that the real battle is just beginning. When the truth about Joe's identity is revealed, they know it won't stop with a confrontation with Brooklyn. Because around this story are Sunny, Olivia, and Lois, characters who are already tightly woven together in a complex web of family relationships, of secrets that have accumulated over the years, of mistakes that are embellished with flimsy excuses. Lulu and Chase know that to expose the whole truth, they must calculate each step carefully. Because just one small mistake could set off an emotional bomb that is enough to destroy all of Port Charles. Things are quickly spiraling out of control. The continuous shock, the constant revelation of what has been hidden for so many years, is pushing everyone to the brink of insanity. The furtive movements, the whispers in the cold hallways, The tense encounters under the dim lights, all of it painted a grim picture of what was to come. Lulu felt the tension in the air, every glance, every half-whispered word carrying a deadly weight. In Chase's mind, the tug-of-war between morality and love was consuming him. Part of him still yearned to keep Brooklyn, to protect the dream of a family he had imagined in his heart. But another part, the honest part, the part that fought for justice, was screaming at him to stand for the truth, even if it meant losing everything. Chase knew that either choice would leave wounds that would never heal. Brooklyn, meanwhile, was losing her way. She felt like she was running on thin ice. Knowing that one wrong step and everything would crumble beneath her feet. She loves Gio with all her heart, and Chase with all she has to give. But she is no longer sure whether that love is strong enough to weather the approaching tsunami of betrayal and lies. Lois, who once believed she could control everything from the shadows, now realizes that she underestimated the power of the truth. Every scheme, every seemingly perfect plan is now crumbling under the weight of cruel reality. And Sunny, accustomed to controlling everything with power and influence, feels for the first time in a long time that he is facing a storm that even he cannot quell. The chaos is growing. Fierce arguments between factions, bitter accusations, looks of frustration and anger, all of it creates an atmosphere so suffocating that the slightest touch could cause everything to explode. The story is no longer just about identifying Joe's birth parents, but also about exposing the lies, the betrayals, the secrets protected at all costs. A new madness has taken root in Port Charles, growing with each passing moment. An unprecedented chaos, a storm that every character is caught up in. Lulu sees it in the gestures of those around her, the worry in Olivia's eyes, the fidgeting in Lois's footsteps, the heaviness in Brooklyn's breathing, the unconcealable deadlock in Chase's eyes. Everyone is waiting for the inevitable, the moment when all the masks will fall, revealing everyone's true colors. But what makes things even more troubling is the calculations that are forming in each character's heart. Sunny is not one to stand idly by when his family is threatened. Olivia is not one to stay silent when her son is caught up in this storm. And Lois, with all her desperation, will certainly find a way to save what is left. Each person has their own calculations, their own plots, their own weapons, making the already chaotic situation even more unpredictable. And in all that chaos, Lulu and Chase realize a cold truth. No one is able to control anything anymore. The story has now become a self-destructive monster, a growing disaster, dragging all of them into a spiral with no way out. Every action, every decision now affects not only their own lives, but can also determine the fate of a new generation. At the center of that storm, Gio, an innocent boy, is still unaware of the battlefield being built around him. And that is the greatest tragedy, that in the fierce war between adults, it is the purest souls that are the most vulnerable. There is no way back. No more easy forgiveness. Port Charles is hurtling toward a fateful moment where the truth will explode like a bomb, sweeping away all that is weak, deceitful, and corrupt. And then, only ruins will remain, the fragments of lives destroyed by lies. Joe's future is no longer the open road filled with hope that those around him once expected. Instead, it has become a dark maze of overlapping, broken paths, where every step he takes now leads toward the abyss. The revelations about his background, the conspiracies woven together by those he once naively trusted, have robbed Gio of everything, his security, his trust, and most of all, his sense of self. He no longer knows who he really is. A child abandoned? A pawn in the hands of adults? A gift or a burden? Those questions were like iron hooks that tore at Joe's soul every day, leaving deep wounds that could not be healed. The dark undercurrent inside Gio grew bigger and bigger. At first, it was just flickering rays of insecurity, long nights of tossing and turning between vague fragments of memories. But gradually, negative emotions eroded all the remaining light in his heart. Innocence, trust, love, the things that once defined Gio, were now just fragments crushed under the weight of disappointment and anger. Gio began to see the world with different eyes, colder, sharper, full of doubt and anger. Every lie he discovered, every secret revealed, pushed him a little further away from what had kept him close to the light. A new shock was quietly exploding inside Gio, not simply the pain of knowing he had been betrayed, but also a primal anger at the injustice of fate. He begins to feel a powerful urge to take back control of his life, to destroy everything that has trapped him in a web of lies. With each passing day, the darkness within Gio grows a little bigger, consuming the last remaining corners of light in his soul. And then, the story goes further than anyone could have imagined. Crazy events follow one another, beyond anyone's control. Brooklyn, Chase, Lulu, Lois, those who once thought they could control the consequences, are now helpless bystanders as their past wrong choices create a monster they never expected. Gio was no longer a child who needed protecting. He was becoming a free force, unbound by gratitude, by love, by any blood ties. Every conversation, every sight of familiar faces now made Gio feel like a stranger. He heard whispers in the hallways of Quartermain Manor. He felt anxious eyes, avoided glances, false words of comfort. All of it only deepened his sense of betrayal. Gio understood that, for all the lies that had been told to protect him, he was now the one who had to survive. A new madness was taking shape. It was no longer the simple rebellion of a wounded boy. This was deliberate resistance, a revenge fueled by broken dreams and accumulated hurt. Gio, step by step, is preparing for the moment when he will reclaim everything that was taken from him, his identity, his freedom, his dignity. And when that moment comes, no amount of apologies will stop him. Port Charles is hurtling toward an unprecedented disaster. Troubles are piling up, relationships once strong are now so fractured that the slightest collision could shatter them. Brooklyn desperately tries to hold on to trust. Chase, though deeply in love, cannot save a future that has been darkened. Lois, who once planned everything, can only watch helplessly as her daughter is swept up in the emotional maelstrom she helped create. Lulu, with her ruthlessness, is also beginning to realize that the truth, once revealed, will not only bring justice, it can also burn everything down. A fire burns inside Gio. A cold, fierce fire, ready to burn away everything that once held him. And when that fire breaks out, Port Charles will never be the same again. There will be no turning back. No miracles will save it. Only destruction will remain, and Gio, the only one standing in the rubble, will be the one to decide who can rise from the ashes.